get this thuggery, because that's what it is, thuggery.
That was our Washington insider and longtime D.C. resident Armstrong Williams describing the crime in D.C. as some leaders in the city try to downplay the violence. While the mayor makes the claim crime has gone down from its peak in 2023, statistics show it's still way higher than the national average. Last year, the district had the highest homicide rate in the country per capita, nearly 6 times higher than New York City and also higher than Atlanta and Chicago. The number of juveniles arrested in Washington, D.C. has gone up every year since 2020, with many of those teens with prior arrests for violent crimes. Vehicle theft also 3 times the national average. Carjackings, in fact, increased 547% between 2018 and 2023. Last year, they were down, but still triple the number compared to 2018. If we're going to play the comparison game here, we're joining us this morning to break this down and give us some clarity when it comes to crime stats is the former head of the Chicago Police Department and veteran retired FBI Special Agent in charge, Jody Weis. You know a little something about crime stats, working for both the feds and also for a huge city like Chicago. The FBI's own website, Jody, has a warning that the numbers they report should not be used for comparison because every jurisdiction reports crime in different ways, and there's been a dramatic change in reporting crime, period. Explain this.
Yeah, what's that old saying? There are 3 types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So it's a good point, Jan. Statistics, they change all the time, and the problem is states, they classify crimes differently. For example, in Texas, assault means it can mean either the threat or it can mean the actual physical contact. In Illinois, assault is the threat or the fear of bodily harm. Then use the term battery for the actual physical contact. So as you can see, when states report things differently, then people have to bring these together. Then you have the other consideration, as you brought up, oftentimes crimes can be misclassified or downgraded. For example, a robbery can be downgraded to either a burglary or to a simple assault. Burglaries can also be downgraded into trespassing. So I bring this up because oftentimes departments will downgrade things to make a better picture of their crime. Think about it. In Metropolitan Police Department in D.C., there is a commander currently on paid administrative leave for being accused of altering crime statistics. So stats are very difficult. I always kind of say, you know, the truth in criminal statistics is oftentimes a moving target.
I also want to point out, though, there was this big narrative that happened during the Biden administration that crime was at a 30-year low. I think we all recall that. And then later we found out one of the reasons why is because the FBI changed how some of these jurisdictions can report these, and more than 80 large cities did not report their violent crime stats to the FBI. Correct?
Yeah, there was when they switched over from the Uniform Crime Report to the NIBRS, the National Incident-Based System Reporting System, a lot of departments couldn't keep up with that, and they simply did not report these crimes. So as a nation, we see all these stats go down. But again, it gets back to that way, Jan. How do you feel? How do you, as a citizen, a resident in D.C., how do you feel? I kind of say this: if I ballooned up to 350 pounds and I dropped 50 pounds, you'd go, great job, Jody. But you know what? I'm still fat at 300 pounds. So you drop all this crime down and that looks good. But if crime is still peaking, you look at DC right now, their murder rate, which is a stat I use a lot, is higher than so many different capitals around the globe. So I think what Trump did was absolutely appropriate to federalize it, bring in those extra resources to start tamping down this crime.
I want to ask you about a study in July by the Council on Criminal Justice. It found the chances of a person facing a violent crime in Washington, D.C., again, according to stats from D.C., did drop in recent years, but the possibility of dying during a crime skyrocketed. In fact, the study examined violent crime data from about 17 large cities between 2018 and again last year, specifically investigating the lethality of violent crimes in those cities. Washington, D.C. had the highest lethality level out of the group, which included Baltimore and Chicago. In fact, it had a 38% increase in that compared to 2018. What'd you make of this?
Wow, that's amazing. And if you think about it, what's going to make you feel unsafe? You know, petty crimes on the street or the fact that people are getting killed around you. If there's a fear and your city has the highest rate of lethality, wow, does that do something to form the perception? I would say yes. So that's why I think you have the residents of D.C. expressing their gratitude and appreciation for the federalization that has taken place, because they can see the effect. That fear is going away. And
yeah, so it's like
kudos to this
you have a less
administration.
chance of being victimized, essentially, is what it's saying. But if you are victimized, you have a bigger chance of dying, is what that sounds like to me. Now, one thing that's not being disputed, quite frankly, from either side, because there is this curfew here for juveniles, is that there has been this rise in juvenile crime. Why do you think D.C. specifically and some other major cities is seeing this?
Well, the council put forth some ordinances and some laws that make it hard to charge juveniles as adults. And I'm not opposed to that. If a good kid makes a mistake, maybe he steals a car, but nobody gets hurt, you know, should that kid be given a break? Should he be kept from going into the criminal justice system? Perhaps. But when you've got 13, 14, 15-year-olds doing armed carjackings, why are they doing that? Because there's no deterrence. And the laws have to change a little bit. You got to let Janine Pirro prosecute these kids as adults. Because when you're doing an armed carjacking, and they've done, I think, 13 and 15-year-old females caused a carjacking that caused the death of someone. Why are they doing it? Because there's no deterrence. And that's what we have to get, is to deter young men from making bad choices.
And there's plenty of repeat offenders. We have seen that too with these juveniles. You mentioned earlier that it should be determined as far as the measurement of what is too much crime. Quite frankly, one crime is too many, one homicide is too many, as we know. So what do you think is the most accurate way to evaluate violent crime and its impact on the community if we can't trust these statistics, if they are being manipulated?
Yeah, the best way for me is to talk to people. If you've been a victim of violent crime, you could care less about any statistics that come out. So talk to the people. I did a lot of town halls in Chicago, and you would hear the stories, and you could start feeling it. Do people feel safe? And that's the thing. If you're going to track crime numbers, though, the ones I always look at, Jan, are murders. Murders are hard to downgrade. And then you look at the murder rates, because that kind of gives you a tell of that feeling in the city. As you just said, you know, what's the murder rate? What's my chance of being killed? And if that's going down, then you can actually see that maybe there might be some successes. I'll never forget this story. I was getting beaten up at that first year, after my first year in Chicago, and we were talking about the murders because we spiked a little bit. And I was able to defend that a bit by saying, listen, what's the happiest place on earth? Disney World. And what is the murder rate in Orlando? It was significantly higher than Chicago, because murders per 100,000 people, actually Orlando was more dangerous for murder than Chicago after 2008. Who would have thought that? No one. So that, you know, but then again, that's how you use statistics to tell your story. But yeah, I think you have to talk to the people, what people are doing right now. And from what I've heard coming out of DC, people are feeling a little bit safer.
And you just told me something about Orlando there. Former head of the Chicago Police Department and veteran retired FBI special agent in charge, Jody Weis. Always a pleasure to have you, sir. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jan.